All
I
right.
know there is actually like a wide variety of things you could do.
Well, if you noticed, I figured out how to change my background.
Yeah, you're in space. It's
Yeah,
beautiful.
Wait,
yeah.
yeah, how do you change your background?
If you go to the stop, you see where it says stop video on the bottom left?
Yeah.
If you click on the little arrow pointing
Oh,
up,
whoa, you could.
yeah. So you just have to get some photos and yeah, I was having a little fun with that. I'm not going to deny.
Yeah, and
Oh, okay. So I see that someone actually raised their hand there. It's a little blue hand.
oh yeah, there's a thing like this. Oh yeah, that's cool.
Where's that?
You go to the chat, I think, or no, participants.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on participants, and then the bottom right, there's mute me and there's raise hand.
Okay,
There is actually another way to get to like even more reactions or whatever, but I'm not exactly sure how to. But I know that that's how you could get the raise hand.
okay. Well, I'll keep an eye on it. But if you see that I'm not noticing it, okay, so it should pop up. I have something on my screen. 2 participants raised hands, but I don't see you guys on the side.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Who is that?
It's your favorite, sir.
There he is. Okay. Oh my goodness, man! You finally decided to join us again. Good.
Oh,
Good. All right. So we're recording now. Well, you guys. Okay. So it says, Michael. So Michael, you had a question?
Oh no, I was just trying to demonstrate it.
Okay. Good. It's funny because I don't. I see the message, but it's not showing up on the right-hand side like it was before. This is so. All right. Anyways, we'll see how it goes. You guys can stop me. So let me, before we get started with A Good Man is Hard to Find. Now this hopefully will work. I'm going to show you, and then I'll be posting your. I think this is it. No, that's not it. Let's hold on. Bear with me. Oh, that's not it. So, sorry, guys. Technology is. I'm trying, but I'm trying to get up your share screen. There it is. Okay. So can you all see this? Yes. I'm taking that as a yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So I'm just going to go through this with you quickly. You're going to, again, this is your midterm essay questions. I'm giving you choices. I don't usually do this, but our situation is different. So I'm asking you to answer one of the following prompts. Okay. It's due April 20th. That's 2 weeks from today. You have 3 possible questions you can answer. The first one, it deals with the story of the chrysanthemums. Hey, what is the significance and symbolism of the chrysanthemums in John Steinbeck's short story entitled The Chrysanthemums? In what way do the chrysanthemums relate to the themes of isolation and freedom? I'm giving you a lot of stuff to work with in these prompts, okay? How do the chrysanthemums impact the plot and the character development of Elisa? How do the other characters in the story respond and react to Elisa and her nurturing of the chrysanthemums? In your answer, you should discuss the transformation that Elisa undergoes and address the question of why she is crying at the end of the story. I want you to note, the reason I read through it, and this is really so important, read these prompts very carefully. Okay, because I'm giving you all the things that I'm going to be looking for when I mark your essays. All right, I may not do the same thing for your final. Sometimes I give a very general, discuss a major theme in the story, where you have to find all the stuff you need. With these ones, I've given you a lot of information, a lot of things you can draw on that will allow you to, guide you, if you will, through the story. And so on. Same thing with the second one, Ivy Day in the committee room. Okay, significance of the symbolism of Charles Parnell. We talked about this in the video. Okay, influence does he have on the different characters of the story? How does the memory of him impact the work ethic and the sense of purpose in the characters? You can focus on one or two of the characters or as many as you wish. That's up to you. Okay, and you should consider the different generations represented in the story and the themes of communal responsibility, individuality, installation, and political paralysis. With this one and the last one, you'll note you have PowerPoints for this one. Okay, and you have videos for this one. This one we did in class. I leave it to you. You get to choose this one, and the last one, which we'll talk about again after we talk a little bit about the story, is on A Good Man is Hard to Find. Okay? I'm not going to read through it now. We can read through it towards a little later. Down here, you should include a discussion of the literary techniques and devices used in the story, such as imagery, setting, symbolism, and dialogue. Imagery, setting, symbolism, and dialogue. Okay? Just use those words. Use them appropriately. Look for imagery. Talk about the setting. Talk about symbolism. And talk about some of the dialogue exchanges. Okay? It's giving it to you right there. This is vitally important. I cannot, and I will be reminding you this when I post other PowerPoints on the essay and so on. Be sure you to use precise examples from the text to substantiate your claims and arguments. This is absolutely essential. If you are going to make claims and draw conclusions and you are not using examples from the text, it's going to be a problem. Everything comes back to the text. That's why we go through the texts in such detail. So if you're going to make a claim, then you say the reason you're making the claim is demonstrated by this passage in the text. Okay? If you're going to say that there's a symbolic significance to, say, the hat, in the grandmother's hat in A Good Man is Hard to Find, you need to show me how you decided that it is symbolic and what is it symbolic from, and you go to the text to demonstrate that. Okay, nothing more important than this. Again, you are not being asked to summarize. Don't just tell me what happens. I've read the story many, many times. I know what happens. You're not there to summarize the story. You need to engage in a close reading and analysis of the story. Okay? You are expected to include a thesis statement in your introduction that is argued. Remember, we talked about thesis statements. I'm going to post a PowerPoint on it in the next day or two. Okay? But your thesis statement is vitally important, and you can test your thesis statement by determining whether it is arguable. Could it be disagreed with? You're not doing a statement of fact. You are taking a position that can be disagreed with. Okay? Not just a statement of fact. Remember that this thesis statement is a single sentence in the introduction that presents your argument to the reader. The single sentence, ideally, that's what it is. I'm not going to be, not on the midterm, as strict with that thesis statement. If it spills over into 2 sentences, that's acceptable, but try to get it to 1, and we'll talk more about that before your final. Okay, all these are the same guidelines you're going to have for your exit exam when you have to do your exit exam. Okay, the rest of the paper, the body of the essay gathers, organizes evidence that will persuade the reader of the logic of your interpretation. There has to be a logic. Okay, it's not just your opinion. It is a logical deduction predicated on the text, not predicated on your personal experiences. You can bring those in because we have to on some level, but ultimately your analysis is predicated on the text. Okay? It should be 600 to 750 words. You know, I'm not a stickler for word counts. Okay? What that means, though, is if you hand in 200 words, there's a problem. And if you hand in 3,000 words, there's a problem. Okay? Keep it in that realm. All right? Within reason. And the reason, if there's too many words, then your essay is going to be wordy, and you know I'm going to come down on wordiness. And there's no way you're going to be able to answer these questions in 200 words. Okay. And then the rest of this, you can look at it yourself. It's standard stuff. Okay. You have 2 weeks, which very much lets you know that because you have 2 weeks, you will have time to do your outlines, drafts, revisions, proofreading, everything. Okay. So just looking here at some of the questions. Okay. So what do we mean by imagery? All right. Well, what's the imagery that we're seeing? What does it represent? Images. What is an image? Okay. We've talked about imagery. Okay. Imagery ties into what is being. Well, I'll tell you what. We'll come back to the imagery when we're talking about the text itself, and we'll look at examples. Okay. Now, I will say that the chat option that we have here is to be used to ask questions specific to this class. Okay, so I see everything that's going up on the chat, guys. You're not chatting one to another. So keep it, do not fill up my chat with things that are irrelevant. It is meant specifically to be about what we're discussing. We good with that? I'm not going to name names. Good. Okay. All right. We're going to now start looking at the text. Are there any questions at this point? Okay. All right. So let's take a look at the text. First of all, hopefully, and again, I can't tell you how frustrating it is for me. I can't see you guys. So when I ask my usual question, how many people have finished the story? How many people have not? I have no way of seeing how you're responding to that. So I have to go under the assumption, as dangerous as assumptions are, that you've all read the story. Okay, if you haven't, you'll get maybe a little, well, we're gonna go through it in detail, and you're gonna need to read it, all right? If you wanna be able to follow what's going on, if you wanna be able to follow the PowerPoint. Actually, before we look at the story proper, let's see if I can get to that PowerPoint. There it is. Okay, so you should have all seen this already. I posted this last night. Okay, so the PowerPoint is following the same. This is the first time I'm using PowerPoints to this extent since I've been teaching. You know, I'm not a PowerPoint guy, but I'm trying to give you a lot of information here that you can draw upon and to help guide you and maybe inspire you to go and do a little more digging within the text itself. So the same format, I give you a brief overview of the characters. Obviously, the main characters, a little more, right? The grandmother and the misfit, a little more information about them because the grandmother's obviously central to the story. But I'm also giving you a little bit about the other characters. All right, you can see all that. You can read that yourself. Hopefully, you've taken a look at it. And then I give you a couple of the themes. Good versus evil, central theme in this story, okay? And religion, forgiveness, and grace. Vitally important themes to the story, especially when we look at that ending, okay? Are there any questions specific to the PowerPoint at this stage? Okay, all right. I'm going to stop this share. All right. Now, I strongly recommend that when we do these virtual classes, that you have the book with you. I'm going to put the text up on the stage, but it's good for you to have your own copy of the book so you can write in the margins and so on. Let's Let's try. Okay, good question. Will all of this be on Omnibox? If I can figure out, I'm recording it, and it should be saved onto my computer in an MP4 file, and then I should be able to post it on Omnivox, so I've been told. I had difficulty with this because it's a different system, right? Last week we were doing the Google Meets. Now we're doing this, so I'm learning it. All right, but yes, if it's not, remember, I will be posting a pre-recorded video as well on this text. But yes, this should be up there, and then this with the other recording that I'll be posting will be feed off each other. The PowerPoints are already up on Omnibox. I posted it last night. Okay. Everything I'm doing here, the questions for your midterm I haven't posted those yet, but they'll be posted as soon as we finish up this class. I post everything I can. All right, so it's a reminder to constantly check Omnibox. All right, all the stuff that I'm doing is there. Okay. Okay, so now once we start looking at the text proper, that should be it. Get to the top. Okay. Again, these virtual classes are scheduled for the whole 4 hours.
Wait, sir.
Yeah.
At the very least, are you gonna post like the Word documents on Omnivox?
Yeah, they're already posted. Which Word documents?
Oh, like these ones, like they're already posted.
Well, this isn't posted because this is just the text that you have in your book. The
Oh,
questions.
so I never got to buy the book.
Well, then you can, if I can find it, you should be able to find it. Yeah. Contact me through Omnivox, okay?
All right. Will do. Thank you, sir.
Everyone should have the book by now. Okay.
Sounds good.
And all the other documents are posted on Omnivox. The PowerPoint and yes.
Perfect.
Sorry? Who's talking? Who wants to say something? If anyone has any questions. I mean, I'm going under the assumption you have the book. I'm hopefully you bought the Macbeth. If you haven't, Macbeth is available. I don't know about the copyrights and all this stuff, but certainly Shakespeare is all available. Okay? Hopefully you have the book though. All right. If you don't and you're having difficulty finding it online, you contact me. I will find a way to link you to it. Okay. So what we're going to do again with this online, because it's scheduled for 4 hours, I don't see that happening. Most of the ones that I've done are about an hour to an hour and a half. All right, because it's just a very different format and so on. And again, I'll be doing a video. So what I want to do is start going through this. A good man is hard to find. We'll see where we are in a half hour, 45 minutes. You know how I go through in detail. If we don't have a chance to finish it here in the class, I will finish it on the recording that I'll be posting. Okay? So we're going to feel how it goes. I need whoever is there, I need you to mute because I'm hearing background noise. Okay? We're good. All right. So it's again, I'm gonna, you know how I like to get your feedback and ask you questions and so on, and that's going to be difficult now. But does someone have anything to say about the title before I delve into this? A good man is hard to find. What is the significance? Remember, we always start with the title. Okay. Anyone? Yes.
You learn later on that it's just it's very ironic.
It is ironic. That's a good way of putting it. Ironic in what way?
Well, because the story, well, the story like later on describes somebody that like because it starts off as showing a good man in air quotations, but then we learn that he's the man, like not as good.
Well,
Right.
yes. I mean, it's a central question as to what constitutes a good man, right? And again, when you think about that ending, I mean, for those of you who have finished it, which I hope is everyone, that's about as disturbing an ending to a short story that you'll ever encounter. Okay, and when we get to that ending and the horror, in many respects, of what happens at that ending, has to be seen in relation to the title. A good man is hard to find. The idea being here, what constitutes a good man? How do we determine what is a good man? What is the criteria by which we judge someone as a good man or a bad man? All right, and that's when we see the exchange between the misfit and the grandmother at the end. It becomes quite profound in many ways, but always, as we've encountered with so many of the stories we're looking at, it doesn't give us a clear-cut answer by any stretch. Okay, and you want to keep that in mind. This story, as in most of the stories, if not all the stories we're dealing with, is asking us to draw our own conclusions and not giving us a clear-cut answer to many of the questions that the story poses, because it's dealing with issues that are not that simple. All right? Again, it's not 2 + 2 = 4 in the world of literature as a rule. All right. So when we see a good man is hard to find, that alerts us right away that we are going to be dealing with some way looking to find a good man. So we're going to be looking at the characters and see who's good here and who isn't good. And keep that in mind as we start. Remember, the beginning of the story is introducing us to the characters, introducing us to the setting, introduces us to a tone. We want to be looking for the imagery. You'll see the imagery here when they're driving, of nature. The image of nature, what we'll be looking at in a little while. Note how it's described. And is that being described in contrast to the events that transpire? All right? But let's get started. Okay, I'm going to go through a bit, then I'll stop, and we can have some questions if you have any, or any comments you may have. Okay, so we start off with the grandmother, right? She's a character. What's her name? I can't see your faces. I can't. You gave me. It's so frustrating. Okay, note, you want to be taking notice of who's named and who isn't named. Okay, and start thinking about why aren't they named? It's just grandmother, right? She wanted. Okay, so what do we find out here? The grandmother didn't. First thing we know, the first thing we start with starts off on a negative tone to some degree, right? The grandmother didn't want to go to Florida. Okay, so again, that's creating a tone, and what we're going to see here is this conflict. This family conflict, because what we're being introduced to at the beginning here is a family, okay? And what do we find out right away? She wanted to visit some of her connection to the East End. She was seizing every chance to change Bailey's mind. Now, we don't know yet, but we find out very quickly. Bailey is her son, and she is trying to change his mind. And we know, because she didn't want to go to Florida, the chances are she's trying to change his mind so they don't go to Florida. But it starts telling us a little bit about her. And you want to be very attentive to her and what she's doing, okay? So in order to change the mind, now look here, Bailey. Remember when I told you in your essay, when you're writing your essay, look at the dialogue, okay? I mean, that's very important, especially as we prepare for Shakespeare, trust me, okay? Look here, Bailey, see here, read this. And she stood with one hand on her thin hip and the other rattling a newspaper at his bald head. Okay, Here this fellow that calls himself the Misfit is a loose from the federal pen heading towards Florida. Okay, so what this does is, obviously, it introduces the Misfit to us. But why is the grandmother bringing this up? Right? What's her interest in the Misfit here? It's right at the very beginning, first paragraph. Well, she's bringing up the Misfit to try to manipulate, to some extent, Bailey's decision to go to Florida, right? It says what he did to these people, just you read it. I wouldn't take my children in any direction with a criminal like that, a hallucinate. Now, if we didn't have this up here, where we know that she is seizing every chance to change Bailey's mind, we might say, well, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. There's a crazy person down at the in Florida, and you wouldn't want to bring your children into that environment and so on. And we might think that that's irrational, makes sense. But of course, we know that she is trying to change his mind, and what we can infer from that is she's bringing up the Misfit as a means by which to manipulate Bailey into not going to Florida because she wants to go to Tennessee. Okay? We want to be very attentive to the character of the grandmother. I mean, is she a good person?
Hey, yo, Derek, are you from Tennessee?
No.
Because you're the only 10 I see.
Okay. I think that works. I'll have to reflect on that.
Okay.
Now back to the story. Stay focused, guys.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry. We need to keep things as light. I'm gonna have to reflect on that one a little more. All right.
Hey, sir, were your pants on sale? Because at my place, they're 100% off.
Okay, but we do want to keep the parameters somewhat refined, right?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Yes. Okay. Don't make me go coach on you. All right. Back to the story. Stay with me, guys. Okay. And again, this is one of the reasons why I don't think we're going to get through the whole story in this setting, because it's hard for everyone to remain focused in this environment. I'm not there to be pacing around the classroom and making sure you're alert, right? I get that. But we're trying. We're learning. So what this tells us here is it's introducing an element to the grandmother's character, an element of her manipulative goals and her manipulative power. Well, we'll see. But of course, I couldn't answer to my conscience. If I did, Bailey doesn't even look up from his reading. We're introduced now to Bailey. What do we know about Bailey? Not much. He's bald, okay? And seems to be accustomed to the grandmother behaving in a certain way. We're introduced to Bailey's wife. We don't know much about her. Innocent as a cabbage, okay? Whatever that means. All right, but it's not flattery. And then, of course, we're introduced to the two kids, June Starr and John Wesley. The kids are intriguing characters here. All right, and I mean, yes, the most obvious deduction we can make about the kids is they're basically spoiled brats. All right, and they're very selfish, and there's a lack of discipline in this household when it comes to the kids. But we want to be thinking about that, again, anticipating what comes at the end, because we know what happens to these kids. All right, are they bad? They certainly behave badly. Does that make them bad people? It's one of the questions we're going to be asking here. Okay, remember, when they get in the car, the grandmother sits right in between the two of them, and they are extraordinarily disrespectful to the grandmother. Okay, right? We see here she wouldn't stay at home to be a queen for a day. Again, a little girl talking to the grandmother like that. And the exchange here is giving us an idea of what the family dynamic is as they get ready to take their road trip. Right, the bravado of Wesley, John Wesley. I'd smack his face. He's, if you were to meet the Misfit. But of course, the bravado, why not? they're not at all anticipating in any way that they're actually going to encounter the misfit. And it seems as if that what this is revealing to us is, they know what the grandmother's like, right? And they know that she's a manipulator. Okay, when they get the next morning, when they get to the next morning and they're about to get in the car, one of the things we learned here, and of course we see a bit of foreshadowing here, anticipating, right? What's in her basket? The cat, Pity Singh. All right, so that tells us on one level that, the grandmother is, we see a bit manipulative. We see she's also a bit sneaky. She's not telling them they're bringing the cat because I know they'd say, Bailey would say no to the cat. So she's sneaking the cat in. And of course, the cat plays a pivotal role later in the story. The cat's what causes the accident, right? But, when we see this as to why she brings the cat, she didn't intend for the cat to be left alone in the house for 3 days because he would miss her too much. And she was afraid he might brush against one of the gas burners. So again, when we're looking at the grandmother, we're seeing someone who's manipulative and we're seeing someone who's sneaky, but then there's a rationale for it. And we're asking ourselves, because we keep coming back to the title, and even though it says a good man, you could, to some degree, replace that with a good person is hard to find, because we're asking ourselves about the grandmother. And is the grandmother a good person? Okay, and she has a lot to say about good people. And we want to be attentive to that as we go through. So we know that she's sitting in the back. We see how they are in the car. We get a description here. Again, some of the things that you want to be attentive to when you're rereading the story, if you're writing on this one especially, as colors. We see, the blue hats and how the descriptions unfold and how the descriptions are in contrast to the events that transpire, right? I mean, this again, it's a very dark story in many ways. Is it ultimately just about nihilistic darkness at the end? Anticipating when we get to the end, or is the end in some way an uplifting ending in certain ways related to the idea of salvation and awareness? Just a thought to put there as we go through. Note here that we're describing how they're dressed, how the grandmother dresses. She's very, very obsessed with appearances. Right? In case of an accident, anyone seeing her dead on the highway would know at once that she was a lady. She's very concerned about her appearance. She's very concerned about being a proper lady. The setting is...
Sir, can I go to the toilet? I've got a real mud monkey brewing, I think I've squirted a little bit, but I have some baby wipes, so I'll be fine.
Yes.
I'll be right back.
Yes, thank you. You don't have to tell us. You can do that. You're a big boy, okay? So what we have going on here is that she is very concerned about her appearance and very concerned about being what she calls a lady. Note that it is set where in the South, and a lot of discussion about the setting and what constitutes the history of the South and the relation of what was perceived to be proper behavior, acceptable behavior. All this, of course, tying into what constitutes a good person. And there's a lot of play on the Southern perception, okay, of refinement and proper behavior. And is that what is necessary to be a good person? To be a lady, right? And to have all these qualities that were so revered in the Old South, right? And of course, the Old South, which was also the time that she's reflecting upon, the South of slavery. Okay, so keep that in mind. Note here as we're going through it, I'm not going to go through it in as much detail as I would in class because it's just not the same dynamic. Note the description here, though. note, this is, so for those who are asking, this is some of the imagery that we see. Okay? Interesting details in the scenery. Okay, we get this whole area here. Stone Mountain, blue granite that in some places came up to both sides of the highway. Brilliant. Note the language. Brilliant red clay banks. Okay. I'm going to say this once. Put your mute on, everyone, now. If I hear anyone, I'm going to find you. I'm going to boot you right the hell out of here. Stop it. What we got here is, again, the imagery. And again, we're looking at the imagery, this particular imagery, in contrast, okay, to the events that transpire. And it's important to keep that in mind. Brilliant red clay banks, okay, streaked with purple. Various crops made rows of green lace work on the ground. The trees were full of silver white sunlight, and the meanest of them sparkled. It's a beautiful setting, okay? It's nature at its finest, okay? And again, that is very purposeful. We see a few more descriptions, so you want to look for that as how the nature is contrasted with nature versus human nature, perhaps, is one way to look at it, okay? But there's an example of the imagery that is being conveyed and why is it significant? That's one of the things. You'll see the imagery, it's all over the place, but why is it significant? And you can only determine its significance in relation to how it is feeding off of or bouncing off of the other things that are transpiring. We're going to get a little taste of this coming up quite soon in terms of this beautiful landscape, okay? And here we see her talking about the South, okay? If I were a little boy, said the grandma, I wouldn't talk about my native state that way because, again, John Wesley here, let's go through Georgia so fast so we don't have to look at it much. Now, they're from the South, and this is, again, the child, John Wesley being his usual, as we see, bratty self, if you will. But here she talks about, I wouldn't talk about my native state, natives mean where she's from, that way. Tennessee has the mountains and Georgia has the hills. She is reminiscing about her past, her native state, where she's from, and the beauty of it. And of course, she's taking much of what she deems to be ladylike, proper, which in her mind equals good, from her background in the beauty of the nature of Tennessee and Georgia and everything it stood for. John Wesley responds, Tennessee is just a hillbilly dumping ground. Okay? Contrasts. And Georgia is a lousy state too. June Star, of course, agrees with her brother. And here we have, in my time, stuck in the past. Now, it's an interesting thing because if it is a hillbilly dumping ground now, according to John Wesley, she's reverting the grandmother, then goes, well, in my time, okay, and then she goes into the whole thing. In my time, first off, children were more respectful of their native states and more respectful in general, and their parents and everything else, okay? Now, what comes right after she says this about in her time, when children were respectful and praising the old South of her time, we get this little scene here, and it's an important one, okay? Because what this is, right, we see the child at the door. It is, right, if we read through it, it's all talking about in her time, and then we have the imagery here, okay, of the black child standing at the door of a shack. What this image is conjuring up is in her time, back in the South, it was a time of slavery, or just after the slavery. It was a time of bigotry and racism. It still is, but much more so back then. So when she's constantly looking to her past and reminiscing about, boy, everything was better there. Kids were more respectful back then, and there were good people then and respectable people. Well, that's juxtaposed with the reality of what was going on in those states at that time. And that's what this scene here is about. And you see how she reminisces with great sympathy. I'd paint that picture. The picture she wants to paint is a picture that is stereotypical in relation to slavery. She doesn't seem to be aware of that. Okay? What does that say about her character? What does that say about what she draws upon in order to determine what is good and proper? Okay, we get more of this. They passed a large cotton field. The cotton field, again, associated with slavery in the cotton fields. The plantations, where's the plantation? This reference here, if you don't know it, it's a good one. Gone with the wind, said the grandmother, ha ha. Why is she laughing? Anyone? Anyone want to jump in here? The significance of Gone with the Wind? No? No one's ever seen the movie Gone with the Wind?
Yeah, I've seen it, sir. It's an amazing film.
It's a great film. It's a little dated at times, but it came out.
It's a little cheesy, you know. Yeah, I agree.
It came out.
It's good though. I'll give it a solid 9 out of 10, to be honest.
I would certainly agree with that. It's based on a book, right? This reference isn't so much to the movie as
I
the
never
book
knew that. Wow.
by Margaret Mitchell. And of course, it's a book about the South. And the title's referencing it's Gone with the Wind. The book and the movie are about how the South, what many people loved about the South, right, like the grandmother, is now gone with the wind. After the Civil War in the United States, slavery was stopped, and that whole style of life, plantations, cotton fields, slaves, that's all been gone, right? And she's joking about it. And what she's reminiscing about is the opulent lifestyle that white people, white plantation owners had at the time, and not being attentive in any way, really, to the fact that it was all predicated on slavery. Okay? So again, this is helping us get a clearer picture of the grandmother, all building towards that ending. Okay, is this a demonstration of a certain naivete? Is this, or even a lack of intelligence about what slavery represents? Is it just an old lady reminiscing about when, you know, at least her world was governed by a set of principles that helped them easily determine what was good and what wasn't, and that now those principles as represented by the kids, right, and their behavior, their disrespect, all that stuff is now no longer entrenched into the way of thinking. So her reminiscing about a time that, at least in her mind, represented when it was all clear cut. And it's not now. She wouldn't, a little bit here, she would not let the children throw the box and paper napkins out the window. Why? She doesn't want them to litter. Because that's what a good person's not going to litter. Okay? Let's jump ahead a little bit. She talks about, again, it's an interesting little story here with the EAT. She's talking about when she was younger, reminiscing about being courted. The grandmother said she would have done well to marry Mr. Teagarden. That's who she's describing here. Why? Because first and foremost, he was a gentleman. A gentleman in that old Southern perspective, right, is a good person. There's no way a gentleman couldn't be a good person. Of course, that same gentleman, that same good person owned slaves, right? So is that really the way that you can judge on that superficial level? A gentleman, and had bought Coca-Cola stock when it first came out, which means quite wealthy. And he had died only a few years, a very wealthy man, right? So she seems to say, yeah, I should have married him, would have been a good catch because he was a gentleman and he was rich. Superficiality. Can you know if someone is good, what their character is, based on appearances and money? Remember how much emphasis the grandmother puts on her appearance, as that is a means by which everyone will know that she's a lady, a proper lady, proper, gentleman. These terms for the grandmother equate into something good. Okay? And one of the things the story is asking us to do is that a proper way to make that kind of determination? Okay, we're coming to the tower, all right? So before we get into that, questions? Anyone? Okay. Now, guys, I'm going to say this once because you have to understand, and I'm not going to name names again. If you are going to be coming into these virtual classes and be disruptive in any way, okay, I might cut you a little slack in the classroom. Okay, I can't cut it here. Okay, we have regular meetings over at TAV to discuss about how these classes are going. Okay, don't put me in a situation. Do not put anything on the chat. I'm only going to say it one more time, unless it is relevant to what we are discussing. Okay. Now, on that note, does anyone have any questions, concerns, observations at this point? All right. Okay, no, okay, good. I'm glad that this was brought up. You didn't like the story, because usually what's the first thing I ask when we start a new story? What'd you think? Okay, so why, I mean, again, Alana, if you want to unmute yourself, why didn't you like the story? You can unmute yourself and we can talk, or you can go through the chat. And anyone else, if you didn't like the story, jump in. Let's tell me why. Anyone? So does that mean Alana? Okay, didn't like the story. Astonishing ending. Is that what we're meant here? Astonishing ending. And the language. The language in what sense? The use of certain words? Hold on, slow down. Yeah, yeah. No, this is an issue that needs to be addressed. But it's to emphasize, and it's very important. And I think we know what word you're referring to. It's meant to demonstrate that the grandmother, with all her talk of proper and the good old days and so on, yet we see this extreme form of racism in her language. And yes, that puts us apart. Here she won't let the kids litter, but she refers to the Black community in this horrifically derogatory way. Okay. Yes, it's more interesting than the, probably, I'm not surprised. The Ivy Day in the committee room is a bit of a challenge. I think this is in many ways a more interesting story. A good representation of people in general. Yeah, I mean, it's a good representation of the complexity, not just of people, but of the way that we, I suppose, judge people. And much of the story, especially when we get to the end, is about judgment, right? And again, we know this as well from the title. You know, good man is hard to find. And how, and again, we'll talk about it. If we don't get to it in this class, I'll certainly be focusing heavily on it when I do the video on the exchange between the grandmother and the misfit. And this gets into the themes of forgiveness and salvation. I mean, what happens at that end? But we want to get there. Other questions at this point? What I'm thinking, and you let me know if anyone objects to this. I'm going to go about another half hour.
I object.
Why?
So I got to go now.
You have to leave now?
Yeah, I've got another mud monkey brewing. My bad, man. Like I think it's the green bean diet I've been doing. I'm not sure
Yes,
what's
okay.
happening, but
Anyone
my stomach's really messed up.
Anyone who wants to leave, as I mentioned at the beginning, this is being recorded, and I will do my best to put it up on Omnibox. If you need to leave, you can, and look for it on Omnibox. I'm going to go, because I know that the schedules are tight. I'm going to go for another half hour because I just want to get through this scene so that what I can focus in on the video will be the ending, okay? So if anyone else needs to leave, I understand. If you can stick around for about another half hour, I'll try to get through this next little bit and bring us to set up for the final. Yeah, don't worry, I'm on it. Okay, Alana, and I'll find out who it is. Okay, and it will be taken care of. Trust me. Anyone else at this point? Okay, so I'm going to continue, and then I'll stop in about maybe less than a half an hour, and then we can have another discussion, and we'll take it from there, and I'll get your feedback. I hope while you're doing this, if questions are coming up while I'm going through this, by all means, write them down. And then we can discuss it when we take a break. Just hold on a minute, everyone. Okay, does anyone have, there's a hand up right now? Yeah. Okay, everyone who's getting engaged in the chat group, okay, I'm seeing everything here, and there are actions that I am required to take that is predicated on our meetings over at TAV. Okay, you know, so try to understand where I'm coming from. Don't make me name names. Okay, so everyone stop. You're all muted now, so no one can talk. Okay, so there'll be no more verbal interruptions. I will bump you out of here if you are doing anything that you shouldn't be doing. I'm not going to say it again. Okay, I understand these are stressful times. I understand that this is one of the few ways that we get to engage in any kind of communication and socialization. I understand that we're all going a little stir crazy, cooped up inside. I get it. Okay,
but sir, that was like a little much.
What?
like I don't know, like that whoever that person was, like
Yeah.
they raged, like relax. Like I understand someone did something annoying, whatever. We all got a chuckle out of it a bit, whatever. But like that person raged, like I don't know. That's why I said something. That's all. I didn't want to start like problems in the chat.
Just for now, okay?
And
Everyone stop. Benjamin, stop. Okay? If you want to have a discussion about it, you can contact me anytime. Okay? Right now, we stop. Okay? Everyone. Got it? Okay. All right. So let's proceed, shall we? And all right. So I'm hopefully everyone should be muted. All right. I'll find that. Okay. So let's take a look and we'll get back to this. All right. So now the tower is an interesting moment here, I would argue. Because what's the purpose of this whole scene? We have to be asking ourselves that. All right. So they stop at the tower for barbecued sandwiches. They're on the road trip. We've seen this exchange. We see how she reminisces about the past. We're starting to question her judgment on certain issues. We've got a fairly good picture of what those bratty kids are like. We don't know much about Bailey and his wife, but we're moving along. And they go to the tower and they meet a man named Red Sammy Butts, who, interestingly enough, and of course there's a reason for this, what we notice right away, Sammy's barbecue, it's a barbecue place, they're going to get some food, has a gray monkey, about a foot high, chained to a small chinaberry tree. What's up with the monkey? I mean, you certainly have to ask yourself. All right. Well, it is, I would argue, a demonstration that much of what the grandmother was reflecting about in the past, not the positive, but the negative of the past that she reveals, is still there in the present. Okay? And I think there's something along those lines going on here with the fact that he has a monkey chained to a tree. Okay? So again, and just the idea that the animal is chained to a tree and so on, what does that tell us about Red Sammy? Okay? We have to unpack this. Okay? We learn about Red Sam's wife. What do we learn about her? Not much. Okay? She mainly serves things and so on. Okay. So what's going on here? Okay. We see again, she starts talking about, let me get this back up, June Star, and the wife of Sammy is saying, would you like to be my little girl? Ain't she cute? And so on. Of course, there's irony there, because what do we know? Do we find June Star to be cute? No. And again, it's feeding off of these contrasts. Right? Always in the idea of who are the good people here. Told his wife, Lon came over and sat down at the table nearby in combination with Yoda. You can't win, and he wiped his sweating red face with a gray handkerchief. These days, you don't know who to trust. Ain't that the truth? Okay. No, these days, it's again a callback to the past, this belief that in the past you could, but now you can't trust anybody, right? Because they're talking about a variety of things. We can go over that. You can go over that yourselves. And here, just to confirm, people are certainly not nice like they used to be. Okay. Two fellers coming here last week driving a Chrysler. It was an old beat up car, but it was a good one. And these boys looked all right to me, said they worked at the mill. You know, I let them fellas charge the gas they bought. Now, why did I do that? And here we're getting, right, because you're a good man. And his response is, yes, I suppose so. Said, but Sam, as he was struck with this answer, is right. So I suppose so. He's not sure. Right? The grandmother says it's because you're a good man. You allowed those guys, those fellas, to charge their gas, not pay for it up front, because you're a good man. He's like, well, I suppose so. It isn't a soul in this green world of gods that you can trust, she said. This is, right, his wife. She said, and I don't count nobody out of that. Not nobody, she repeated, looking at Red Sammy. This idea and the theme of trust. Who can you trust? We see the example up here where Red Sammy trusted these people. Why did he do that? Well, because if you trust people, if you give people the benefit of the doubt, the suggestion here by the grandmother is, you're a good man. Get down here, did you read about that criminal, the misfit? Asked the grandmother. And so that introduces, foreshadowing a bit about what's going to be coming. And then we get, right, the title of the story is revealed to us by Red Sammy. A good man is hard to find. Everything is getting terrible. I remember the day you could go off and leave your screen door unlatched. Not no more. And he and the grandmother discussed the better times. Okay? So this is the title of the story being introduced by Red Sammy at this barbecue. Red Sammy, who is called a good man by the grandmother, doesn't seem convinced that he is. We have this long discussion about trust. We have this discussion about the past when you could leave your front door open. The past being, in this case, again, the same past that the grandmother was talking about previously. The past of the Old South, when gentlemen were gentlemen and ladies were ladies. And of course, plantations were plantations and slaves were slaves. Okay. How do we determine what constitutes good? Just a minute, people. Okay. So what's the purpose of this scene? Why to put something as important and as vital to the story as the title of the story and where the title comes from in the mouth of Red Sammy? Okay. Well, again, the discussion of better times, there seems to be some kind of affinity between Red Sammy and the grandmother. If the grandmother sees herself as a lady, she sees Red Sammy as a gentleman, okay, a good man. She sees herself as a good woman, as a good person, okay, all seemingly predicated on the way things were in the past. Keep in mind, and I'm going to emphasize this, when we associate the past, we look at the older people, the grandmother, and so on. The present, in this story in particular, is more representative by the children, right? They're the young, they're the current generation. So it's very important to be attentive to how the children behave and how that contrasts with this idealization of what was the past, both in the context as to what constitutes a good person. Okay? Briefly, I'm gonna start wrapping it up, and I will have a few words to say before you guys leave. So just stick around. This bit here is going to all lead up to the accident. I'm going to deal with this material in a video that I'll be posting. Okay? So we're going to stop here now because the disruptions, I will promise you, you may think you're smarter and you can't be found. You will be. All right. And there's no more warnings coming your way. You will not be allowed in my class again. That's it. That's all.
My nigga, that's crazy. I remember asking.
I wish my technology was a little more advanced, but I have a big meeting coming up at the school, so it shouldn't be too hard. Okay. And okay. Well, you know, just so you know, for the rest of you, okay, can everyone hear me? When what someone like this does, and if any of you know who he is, and if you do, you can be nice and maybe give him one warning, or you can tell me, okay? Because what's going to happen is I'm not going to conduct a class with this, so he's going to ruin it for all of you. You understand? These types of disruptions are absolutely unacceptable. It's extraordinarily disrespectful to everyone here. And whoever it is, and I will find out who it is, should be more than ashamed. Okay? It's really a sad thing. All right? So we're going to wrap it here, and hopefully we'll be able to continue with these every Monday. But this is not going to be allowed to happen, and action will be taken. And if you know who he is,
Sage, I have something to tell you. What is it?
hold on. All right, we're going to wrap it up here, and I'll just tell you a little bit more about what's coming. I will finish up this lecture. I will finish up this lecture. I just tried something. I think I might have gotten rid of him. I certainly hope I did. Okay, and we'll have to discuss how this is going to proceed, because that's just not going to be acceptable here. And I apologize for the distractions that were caused by that particular individual. It's a shame, and it's you really should all be disturbed by it, because it's really under the circumstances, especially it's a how dare you moment. Really is. That level of immaturity, I wouldn't even expect that at the elementary school level. All right, so you can look for, okay, let me just go. You can look for the continuation of this lecture. I will hopefully post it tonight or tomorrow, okay? I will be posting your essay questions this afternoon, right? We've already looked at them, right? And just to remind you, okay? So you can see because I just wanted to read over this third one, which we didn't read before, because now we started into the story. What does it mean when the misfit says, again, it's the ending, so it's not really going to resonate now, except, of course, most of you have read the ending. But you want to be, what kind of goodness does he have in mind? Is this the beginning of a transformation of the misfit? We haven't looked at the misfit yet, so you're going to have to be reliant upon watching the video that I'm going to post tonight or tomorrow, where I will be focusing in on everything that transpires from the moment we were at. I will remind you that I will also be posting I will be posting the video. I'll be posting the instructions in terms of structure and form for the essay, and talking about the thesis statements and things like that. Hold on, I know I'm pausing. I'm just trying to figure out what kind of control I actually have over things here, so to see if I can more quickly eliminate the problems in the future, right? And yeah, it's not my strength, so
So I'm pretty sure you can kick people from the class.
I think I kicked the guy already. I think I finally found out who it was, and I managed to kick him. Thank you, Benjamin. I appreciate that. But we'll work on it. So anyways, are there any questions at this point? If you haven't read it, or you read it a while ago, you know, it's a great chance to, I would suggest you read it or even reread it before you watch the video I posted. I will try to keep the video that I post tonight or tomorrow short. Okay, I know that sometimes I tend to go on. I think I gave you hopefully a good sense of things. Well, we are getting bombed here, aren't we, guys? And I have no control over this. I've been actually hearing about people doing this, and I guess someone, hold on. Okay, hopefully that is, you're seeing this one, and now what I want to do is stop the share. April 20th is the due date. Okay, that's 2 weeks from today. And I will find out. I have a big meeting on Wednesday with the tech people who are going to work with us with all this online stuff, and I will be sure that I find out all the necessary tools I have at my disposal to ensure that we don't have those types of disruptions again. And again, I apologize that we've all had to endure that. It's a shame, but you know, what can we do? Can you post a sample of the written? Yeah, okay, so someone's asking, can I post a sample of a written essay? I'll give you something similar to that, okay? That'll be coming up in the next couple of days, where I'll be showing you what it's supposed to look like, where you put a thesis statement, where you have your topic sentence, and so on. Okay, so yes, I think I'll give you much information regarding that I think will be helpful. Remember, if you have concerns, you can contact me through Omnivox, and we can set up this, but one-on-one if you want, okay? It's all done through Zoom, all right? I think as well, and I don't know if you're gonna be able to access it because I haven't figured it out. You know that I keep office hours on Tuesdays between 12 and 2. I have access to Zoom during that through Tab. I'm not sure you guys do, because it doesn't show students listed there. So I'm working on that to arrange, but in any case, email me through Omnivox if you want to discuss something in particular, and then we'll just arrange a Zoom meeting, one-on-one. Okay, I mean, we'll have to coordinate our times. I know our schedules are all topsy-turvy with this new reality we live in, but just get in touch with me, and we'll make it happen. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording here. Is there a class next week's? Oh, good question. I don't think so. Right, next week is supposed to be our break. I will find out, confirm, and send you information about it. Okay.
Sir, I believe that they said that we do get our break still. Like
yeah, I think. I mean, I'll continue to post, but I don't think we'll be doing this virtual class.
All right, sounds good, sir.
Okay, but I'll keep checking Omnivox when you can, because I'll continue to post things for you. For the person who's concerned about the imagery, yes, I will give you a clearer definition. I'll write it out and post it on Omnivox, and then next time we talk, if you have any concerns, you can contact me. All right. So I'm stopping the recording.